Imagine there's a contractor and he puts 30% margin on his jobs. He now is wanting to win more jobs. So he goes and lowers his margin by 10%. So he goes from 30% to 20%. You ready for this? You'd have to almost get 50% more sales to actually make up for the loss in profit. The purpose of having a sales process, any process, is you want to optimize it. And to optimize it, you need to have the data. You cannot change what you don't measure. So you need to start measuring what are those things that change those results. Hey guys, Andrew here with another no bullshit podcast for contractors. The question I got for you today is, do you want to just survive or do you want to thrive when we're dealing with difficult times? In this case, we're talking about something that's made a massive turn for the best. I wouldn't say the worst, but definitely not good. That's the housing market. Whether you're in the States, whether you're here in Canada, housing market is taking a massive turn, and we've got to be able to get through this challenging time. Just like, we had to deal with COVID-19. If you look back at that, did you survive through that or did you thrive through it? Our champion CEOs, they thrive through it, and they thrive through it by doing some specific things. So if you want to get through difficult times, in this case, the housing market, then this is the right podcast for you, especially if you're an owner of a contracting business. And that's what we're going to get into is the right down into the trenches of what, our champion CEOs have used to get through challenging times, whether it's this housing market, challenge, or, whether it was back in the past of the good old COVID-19. So if that's of interest to you, tune in. I don't want you to waste your time. I want you to get the most out of this. We're going to be maybe 10, 15 minutes to crank this baby out. And I'm going to give you tactical, strategic strategies that work. Okay? No bullshit. So, housing market. What's the situation? Like I said, it's not good. Let me just read a little blurb here from my team. And, again, it said that it's worse in Canada than it is in the States, but let's just put that in perspective. Here in Canada, I'm going to use that as an example. The Canadian Real Estate Association says that the national sales to new listings ratio hit a 10-year low of 49.5% in October. Let's look at that. They say that it's at a worse point than it ever was in COVID-19. Like, that's pretty freaking bad, right? So if it hasn't hit you yet, there's a good chance it's going to hit you. And whether or not you do industrial work, commercial work, you might be like, man, this doesn't relate to me. Guys, the housing market feeds the rest of the markets. So if it hasn't hit you yet, there's a good chance it is going to hit you. So we want to get ahead of things. I think that's one of the biggest things that we want to talk about today. But how can it affect you? It can affect you because, the buyer's mindset is going to be about, they're going to keep their money in their wallet or a lot tighter anyways than they normally would. So, it doesn't matter what market you're in, you're going to have to really make sure that you have some strategies around that. And you want to make sure that you get this nailed in a couple of different ways as far as benefit. Not just we're going to talk about how we can, how these strategies are going to help you become more profitable and keep keep yourself busy and stay stable and thrive. But the confidence that a CEO walks into a room with is super important to their team. Even if you don't talk about it, your team's thinking about it, right? So you want to make sure you've got some of these strategies in your back pocket, or you're working on them, or you've got them ideally in place so that you have that confidence, so that they're not looking at leading you, okay? They're not looking at going to the competition because they're afraid that you're going to run out of work. They're afraid that you don't have any strategies for stability, and you're just, doing things, at the seat of your pants. I don't care if you got a 1-person team, 10-person team, 100-person team. This applies to all of you. So look, one of the key things, guys, I'm just going to give you, some of these are going to carry more weight than others, depending upon where you're at with it. But the first one is this. If you want to thrive, you got to optimize your sales process. You've got to have it broken down. I cannot stress that enough. You might be saying, Andrew, I do all the sales. I'm the owner. I'm already good at it. Look, if you don't analyze the steps that lead you to a sale, you might be a Gretzky, amazing salesperson, The problem with that is you're not going to have any data, any indicators to tell you if things are, what's causing your sales to go down and what can you do about it. So I'll give you a prime example. When we look at a sales process, there's several steps from when the phone rings or the email gets sent, something on Facebook Messenger. You've got to break it down into steps because it's those steps that lead to the result that's going to get you to change the result. My example of this is super simple and very relevant for every single contractor. A lot of contractors will come to us and say, I need to get more work. In other words, I need to land more jobs. I say, okay. We won't be able to work, directly on that. And they go, what do you mean? So, well, you can tell me all day, or you can tell yourself all day, look in the mirror, that I need more jobs. But that's not going to change it. The reason, guys, that you can't innately change a result. You can change the things that cause the result. They're like, what? I'll say it again. You can't innately change a result. This is a champion CEO shift in mindset. It's like a bit of a paradigm shift, they call it. And if you're still not getting it, I want to be clear. The number of quotes that you do times your win ratio, so your quote to win ratio, gives you the number of jobs that you land. And it's going to be different for every product and service that you do. I guarantee you that those numbers will be different. You need to focus in on the things that change that result. So in this case, if we're looking at getting more jobs, we'd be looking at what do we got to do to, first of all, where are we at? How many quotes do we do? How many quotes are we getting every single week, requests for quotes? Versus how many do we actually land or quote to win ratio? How many times do we work with champion CEOs that come in here and they're like, yeah, man, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that, and then they want more work. And I go, okay, this is the couple of key things in basic terms that causes you to land jobs, get more jobs or not get enough jobs is how many requests for quotes do you have and how many of those that you quote turn into actually jobs. I go, okay, so let's pick one of your products. And they go, yeah, all right, installing HVAC units. I go, yeah, all right. So what's your win ratio? They go, I think I must win at least 80% of them. And then we do get the actual numbers for the last 2 weeks and we find out that their win ratio is only 50%. Okay. We find out that they tell us, hey, I need to get more leads. I need to get more requests for quotes, right? Meanwhile, they're not landing enough of the jobs they're quoting. So guys, the purpose of having a sales process, any process, but in this case, a sales process, is you want to optimize it. And to optimize it, you need to have the data, okay? You cannot change what you don't measure. So you need to start measuring what are those things that change those results. In this example, I'm talking about winning jobs, okay? There's a whole, we call it the 4 pillars of profit. I'll probably do a podcast on that soon. It's a unique intellectual property model that we teach our champion CEOs. And it allows them with small changes to honestly make 20, 30, 40% more profit on their products and services because we're not just changing one thing. It's subtle little changes along the way that multiply. So step 1, guys, if you don't have a sales process, write out a sales process. Write out the things that actually are going to change the results and then measure them and then address them with a specific strategy or 2 that's going to change them. And now that you've actually got the data, you can see what the impact of that is. Example, how many contractors that want to, after we do this, data mapping and find out that their win ratio is too low, that we find out that one of the main reasons is they don't follow up with their leads, with the jobs that they actually quoted. And just doing that by itself increases their quote to win ratio dramatically. Another one regarding that, and then I'll move on to some of these other strategies for you. Another one for that is they don't know the language, the secret psychology of their avatar. And so when they talk to them all the same, instead of really understanding what the prospect values. Example, you don't, talking to an elderly couple versus a newly married couple are going to be 2 very different angles and approaches to them wanting to put a new furnace in. The elderly people are looking for probably the cheapest thing that's going to last them, say, if they're 90, the next 10 years or something like that, with low maintenance, and they're going to have trust issues and all the rest of that kind of stuff. The young people over here, they might be looking at this house that they're building to live in for the rest of their life, and that might change the way that they do it. Or they're maybe looking at flipping, buying this place and flipping it. Like, if you don't understand the secret psychology, you're not going to be able to maximize your conversion rate, okay? Your quote to win ratio. So guys, optimize your sales process. That's massive, huge, okay? And next one, don't get trapped in this lowest price war. I'm going to do this really quickly. Hopefully I don't lose you with it. But I want you to understand the impacts of lowering your price, all right? So let's see if I can share my screen. This is going to be a game changer. And let's see if this catches your attention if you want to keep on listening. I'm only going to spend maybe another 5 minutes on this podcast. Here's an example. Imagine there's a contractor and he puts 30% margin on his jobs. He now is wanting to win more jobs. So he goes and lowers his margin by 10%. So he goes from 30% to 20%. You ready for this? He would have to almost get 50% more sales to actually make up for the loss in profit. I'm not shitting you. Like crazy. So let me show you a bit of math. It's going to be super simple. If you're driving the truck, you'll still get it. You'll be able to visually see what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can pull up the old magic marker here and share with you guys my screen of what we got. So I got this $1 million contractor, right? And right now, like looking back in the last 12 months, just for grins, he made 30%, okay, profit. So what did he make? Bottom line, he made $300K on $1 million. Now he goes and changes it, whereby now instead of making 30 points, he drops his prices to 20. Okay, so that same contractor, what happens? Well, he would only make what? $200K. So for that contractor, get ready for this, to make the same $300K, the difference between the two is what? Super simple. The difference between $300K and $200K, you're going from 30% to 20% is $100K, correct? Yes, it's correct. Okay. For him to make up that $100K, now that he's lowered his pricing to 20%, guess what? Guys, get ready for this. He would have to do how much more work? He would have to do $500,000, $500K more in work to make up that extra what? $100K. So here we go. That contractor, by decreasing his pricing from 30% to 20%, would have to become a $1.5 million contractor, guys. $1.5 million contractor at 20%, right? Because he reduced it at 20%, okay? To make what? The same fucking $300K that he made when he was $1 million contractor. So imagine how much energy and effort you would have to put in to make up that difference. So lowering your prices. Oh, I'm just going to lower it from 30% to 20%. It's only 10%. What's the big deal? Guys, it's not 20%. Okay? It's not just making it up. It's not just a 10% shift from 30 to 20 because of math, guys. I'm telling you, this fucking changed my life and the way that I looked at things in order to be able to thrive versus survive. The contractor that goes in a panic situation and not having a sales process and not breaking things down and not having strategy specific to what's going to change those results is they panic. They reduce their prices and they think that, oh, hey, man, I'm winning some more jobs. This guy would have to win 50% more work. And guess what? No contractor lands 100% of the jobs that they quote. Imagine a contractor that only landed 50% of the jobs that he quoted. How many more quotes would he have to do, right? If he was doing 2,000 quotes a year or whatever, say it was 2,000 quotes or 200 quotes a year that made up on average that $1 million in sales, he would now have to do like 300, or if it was 2,000, 3,000 quotes just to try and land enough work. And guess what? They don't make any more money. It's the same fucking profit. And guess what? You're going to attract more tire kickers. So before you look at lowering your prices during this housing crisis or when times are slow, focus in on optimizing your sales process, guys. Okay, I've given you some super easy lead gen strategies, to increase your conversion rate. There's the whole 4 pillars of profit that we can get into another podcast. But guys, I cannot stress this enough, okay? You've got to have a sales process so you know every step along the way what actually changes those results before you start looking at reducing your pricing, okay? The opposite is true for increasing your pricing. A contractor that comes in and says, you know what? I'm going to go from 30% to 40%. You might be thinking, you're fucking crazy, Andrew. I'm not gonna win as many more jobs. Well, here's the funny thing. It's funny. They could lose between 30 and 40% of the sales that they used to get, and they would still actually make more profit. So in other words, just Cole's Notes version. Somebody went and increased this to say 40%. They would only have to do about $750,000 worth of work versus $1 million worth of work. Guys, this is how the champion CEOs of contracting companies thrive versus survive. So I'm Andrew Houston here from Profit for Contractors. Number one, have a sales process, guys, that breaks down the aspects of what wins work for you, gets you sales, makes you money, so that you know what you can change, and try and stay away from lowering your prices because the impact is dramatic. And look, guys, if you're looking for solutions tailored to your business needs, you can check out the links in the description box below. You can join our Facebook group, Profit for Contractors. We've got 20,000 people in there, like-minded contractors. Same thing with Instagram. I think we've got 30,000 followers on there. Book a call in, guys, to see what we can do to help you guys out, because it's not worth doing it alone. Okay, it's not worth trying to figure it all out on your own, doing it the hard way. Go from decades to days by taking things that already work and applying them versus trying to figure it all out yourself. And I will see you on the flip side. Ciao.
Hey, rock stars. Thank you for watching the No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. And if you're serious about growing and need help, click on the link below. Myself and my team would love to help and give you the necessary tools so you can take your contracting business to the next level. And remember, dominate, delegate, and deliver.